I'm Dan Lieberman. I've been investing and increasing the value of multifamily property for more than 25 years. I have a training program to help people learn actually what I've learned over the last 25, 30 years and be able to add value to their properties and get a significant advantage over others. I started flipping houses when I was younger, and all my other friends had jobs, and here I was walking around with $500,000 feeling rich, and one day the market crashed, and literally I went from being a wealthy guy in his 20s to being broke. And that's when I realized that this is not the way to go. I talked to someone I knew, and he had been doing apartments, and he said, look, I still have the rental income coming in. I don't have to sell in a bad market. And I said, this is the way. And so I started with small apartment buildings, and eventually we moved up to bigger and bigger ones, and that's how I got involved. I started a property management company. Actually, someone had asked me to help them turn around a property that they had. So I took a lot of what I learned in single family, how to make the place look nice, how to make things look larger, how to make them feel, nicer, and I applied that into the rental property side, which a lot of people were not doing at the time. We started taking over problem properties, people who had, they had other property managers running their buildings, but things were not going well, so I started getting hired to turn their properties around. And we got successful at that. Company grew, started as myself, but eventually I had about 50 people working for us. We were doing thousands of units, but eventually I sold that business, and now I'm just focusing on both my own assets and in teaching people what I've learned over the years. People, when they get into rental property, especially initially, all they hear about is the upside. But people have issues with non-payment, people have issues with late payment, people have issues with tenants that destroy their property. I mean, it's not that common, but it happens. And frankly, mostly the problem is, I think, people pay, when they buy their property, they're just eking out an existence because it's gotten so competitive that people are buying properties that produce maybe a 5% return, and that 5% assumes everything goes okay. If a tenant lawsuit can throw you, having a bad tenant that drives out the tenants around them can cost you. And people are either bleeding or they're just barely getting by. The goal is to create a great experience for tenants, which ultimately creates a great experience for you because you're keeping them. I mean, the thing is, multifamily is like any other business, and most people don't treat it that way. The way people talk about real estate, it's you buy it, it's an investment. You rent it, and then you sell it and you make money. But the truth is, it's a business, and you got to run it like a business. And if you look at businesses like Apple or other businesses, they want to create a good experience for their customer. They don't just focus on the 5 or 10% of bad customers. We focus on the bad tenants. Oh, we got to evict this guy, or oh, this guy's paying late all the time. And maybe we focus on the 5% of good tenants. Oh, these guys are great. They referred us people or whatever. And then we leave the rest of them. So we set up a program so that you wouldn't forget about the 80% or 90% of your customers, so that the only time they hear from you is not when they get a rent increase notice. And that's actually part of what our course is. It's taking all that combined wisdom of all these different situations and saying, here's what you need to do. And most of the stuff you find online is either really basic beginner stuff, or it's this whole find an apartment building, buy it, and you'll do fine. They don't really go into any detail of what's that fine. If you go to a hotel, for example, there's a big difference in price between going to a Motel 6 or going to a Hilton or a Hyatt or even a Ritz Carlton. There's a whole range. But it's not just the physical part. It's not, they all have a bed, they all have a TV. Some of it's the physical, but a lot of it's really the level of service that they give, and also thinking about how can we make things easier. And that's what we do with multifamily. We look at what's the experience, what does it feel like when you come up to the property, so first in getting people in, how do we do the tour, what do we say, the words we use. There's a big difference. You call your doctor up and you say, I need to see you, and they say, well, the doctor can't see you until next Friday. Versus, hey, you're in luck, we have an opening next Friday. So the words you use, the way you do things all makes a difference, and that's what we script people through. Also, when you talk about programs, you look at, so some of the things that we did is we try to make the real estate unique. So if people are going and they're looking at apartment building A and apartment building B, they're basically comparing on price if there's not that much difference between them. But if we have, certain options that you can't get anywhere else, or upgrades, or we will customize things for you, then it's more of a question of, do I take this one, which has all these things I want, or do I save money and take the other one? And we found that we get a lot more people, we get a lot more rent by focusing on what people want versus just thinking about, how do I get more rent?